All right, let's answer some questions. John Kasich, will the 53-man roster limit increase when the NFL moves to an 18-game regular season schedule? If so, by how much? Well, I like that John Kasich accepts the reality that there will be 18 regular season games, because there will be. But the reality is that, and hang on one second, I just need to do a quick text here. The reality is, wait, one more, and I'll get right back to it. When they expand to 18 regular season games, there will be more roster spots. I don't know how many. That's all a subject of negotiation between the NFL and the NFL Players Association. And the union should have a long list of things it wants right now from the NFL. And it should be ready to ask for everything. And it should be fighting 18 games. We made this point before. Lloyd Howell, the NFLPA executive director, I wanted to say Lloyd Braun, different person entirely. He needs to be putting up more of a fight. Don't say, hey, who doesn't want more football? I want more football. What you say is, no way in hell are we doing 18 games. No way, no how. No, no, no. Until it's time to say yes, and maybe you get more. If you make it more of a fight, if you make it harder for the NFL, maybe you get more. But there will be greater rosters. There'll be greater game day roster. There has to be if they go to 18 games. There has to be. And I think that's one of the easy things for the NFL Players Association to request. Anastasia 026, are Joe Shane and Brian Daboll on the hot seat this season? Is it a make or break season for them? I think they are, especially with Bill Belichick lurking, and the possibility that Bill Belichick could go to the Cowboys, Bill Belichick could go to the Eagles. Well, let's get him here with the Giants, the team that he coached to 2 Super Bowl wins as defensive coordinator. Remember a few years ago when that dysfunction came to light? There was a Seth Wickersham long read, #long read at ESPN.com about Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo and Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. And Gary Myers swooped in at some point with a report that Belichick would like to coach the Giants. That's not really a stretch. If he goes anywhere, yeah, he's got an affinity for the Giants. He's got a history there. And if the Giants are going to be looking at dealing with Belichick in the division as head coach of the Cowboys or the Eagles, why not move and get Belichick? And a lot of that depends upon what happens this year with the Giants. If they have another non-playoff season, it's entirely possible. We see it every year. 7, 8 coaches gone every single year. It's a very tough and unforgiving business. And when you've got a coach out there that other teams may be competing for, the Giants will be ready to move. And look, we know how this goes. Don't tell anybody, because, it kind of violates the Rooney Rule and probably other rules. But a team that knows it's done by around Thanksgiving or so, some team out there probably going to start talking to Belichick behind the scenes. And there's a good chance everything will be in place when the season ends. And then we'll just find out when we find out. Wouldn't be the first time that happened. The most obvious time was when Mike Shanahan went to Washington. Everybody knew Daniel Snyder was going to fire Jim Zorn and hire Mike Shanahan. And they made a mockery of the Rooney Rule. They allowed the rule to be satisfied by a couple of assistants on Jim Zorn's staff being interviewed before Jim Zorn was even fired, which is just a load of crap. But the NFL doesn't want to tell the world that its teams are violating the Rooney Rule, so the NFL will bend itself in knots to say there has been no violation. So somebody will have Belichick lined up. I'm confident of it, and we'll find out when we find out. Let's find out what's next here. Dan 2K0, can Mahomes be considered the greatest even if he doesn't catch Tom Brady's 7 when he retires? Yeah, I think so. Look, you're giving me an easy way to navigate this. Even if he doesn't get to 7 Super Bowl wins, well, what if he appears in 14 Super Bowls? What if he goes 6-8 in the Super Bowl? He's 3-1 currently. When you consider what Mahomes has already done, and he's just kind of into his prime, 6 years as a starter, his worst performance is losing in overtime of the AFC Championship game, something that's happened twice. He's done that twice. He's won a Super Bowl 3 times, and he's lost a Super Bowl. That is amazing. Amazing. And when you consider last year that when they got embarrassed at home by the Raiders on Christmas Day, we're starting to think, they're going to be on the outside looking in for the 17 playoff seed. And then they found it. They found their way against the Bengals. Next thing you know, they're the 3 seed. No. Yeah, the 3 seed. They're the 3 seed because they had to go on the road to Buffalo, the 2 seed, went on the road to Baltimore, the 1 seed. See, this is why the ring got screwed up. It's hard for the brain to accept the fact that the Chiefs were lower than the 2 seed because the Dolphins got listed as the 7 seed on the ring, which means the Chiefs were the 2 seed. No, they were the 3 seed. Dolphins were the 6 seed. Chiefs still got it done. Went on the road and won in Buffalo, won in Baltimore, won the Super Bowl again. They just find a way. And I'm going to be very reluctant to bet against Patrick Mahomes in any playoff game. Maybe against the Bengals. We were talking about this on PFT Live today. Against any other team, hey, the opponent's better, but the Chiefs have Mahomes. And he finds a way to make a difference almost all the time when it's time to play in the playoffs. Here's an important question from Manuel Villa. Not football related, but I love The Office and I don't like Seinfeld. I have tried watching a couple of times. Any recommendations on episodes to get me hooked or invested? Now, those of you who watch PFT Live or PFT PM on a regular basis, first of all, thank you. Second of all, you know that my position is I don't have favorite episodes of Seinfeld. I have favorite moments, favorite scenes, favorite lines. But I think the best way to get into it, if you've never watched it, season 4 to me is the best. And I'm actually watching that now on Netflix as I work. It's on. It's just background noise. It's soothing to me. And there are some really good episodes, some really good moments. And that whole NBC storyline, I love that because I kind of used the Costanza approach with Rick Cordella when he called me in January of 2009 and wanted to explore a partnership with PFT. And I did the whole Costanza. This is the show. This is the show. And we're not bending. And I said something like, I've got to have final say over everything that goes on the website. There's no way I'm going to give that up. And if you even want to control me in any way, you're wasting your time and you're wasting my time. And I fully expected when I finished saying that, Rick would respond by telling me, well, we're NBC. We can't just give final say over all this content to some guy in West Virginia we barely know. But when he said, we have no problem with that, I thought, shit, now I got to come up with another way to scare him off. And I did try until the servers imploded once or twice. I did try to scare him off and I did try to stay independent. And it ended up being the best professional move I ever made. And I didn't want to do it. So anyway, there's some shades of that in there that makes season 4 even better in my estimation. So Manuel Villa, check out season 4 of Seinfeld. And you have Netflix, you have access to all of them. Start with season 4. King 36, do you think a precedent? Let me try that again. Do you think setting a precedent is a factor in the Brandon Aiyuk, Trent Williams hold in, hold out? I get the feeling the 49ers aren't in a rush because they don't want this to occur with other players going forward. I hate this fear of setting precedents. Because if you're a good enough player, it's easy to say to somebody else that says, well, you did that with this guy. Yeah, play like him and we'll take care of you. Be a second-team all-pro receiver and then we'll take care of you. Be a future Hall of Fame left tackle, a foundational piece of our offensive line, and then we'll take care of you. I don't like these rules and these concerns and living in your fear because the bottom line is they're going to do the deal. And why drag your feet? Why have these guys not available until right before week 1? And then you hope they'll be ready to go. You hope they won't get injured. You hope that they'll be at top physical condition when you know they aren't because they haven't been around practicing and getting ready to play. And this leads to another question, and this gives me a chance to clarify one of the NFL rules. This is from We all need DeBeefy. Okay. Is Trent Williams a candidate to receive the 5-day letter? Remember. If you never show up, the 5-day letter isn't a factor. It's why, for a player, once you show up, you're kind of screwed. Because if you leave, they can send you the 5-day letter, which says, shockingly, if you don't return in 5 days, you can be put on the reserve left squad list. And if they do that, that's the nuclear option. You're shut down for the year. You can't play for anybody. You're over if that happens. I remember a year when DeAndre Hopkins was unhappy with his contract with the Texans, and there were reports he held out, and it was like, no, he showed up, then he left, and that's technically what happened. He showed up, then he left. Well, once you show up, and you leave, you have no leverage. The team has all the leverage at that point. So don't show up at all if you want to have maximum leverage. Here's another one, Ohio Fan 85. You said the NFLPA vetoed the emergency quarterback rule change. Can they veto any rule change? And to be more specific, here's what happened. When the rule change was put in place last year, allowing one player on the active 53-man roster to be designated the emergency third quarterback, that was agreed to by the NFL and the NFLPA in the form of a side letter. The union actually sent the side letter around to the agents yesterday, just kind of updating them on what was happening with this rule. There has to be an agreement with the union to deviate from the existing CBA, and that agreement was just for 1 year. So to extend it, the union has to agree. To change it, the union has to agree. The union didn't want to agree to having a member of the practice squad be elevated to be the third quarterback. And the NFL could have offered the union some concession. The NFL could have tried to talk them into it, but the NFL didn't. So the bottom line is the third quarterback rule is no different than it was last year. You have to be on the 53-man roster. So if a team doesn't have a third quarterback on the 53-man roster, you're not going to have an emergency third quarterback. And some teams, I think their attitude is, if we're ever down to our third quarterback in any given game, we're already screwed. It doesn't matter whether it's a guy handing off over and over again or a third string quarterback going out there and trying to read a defense and throw the ball in a way that will let everyone know this is why he's a third quarterback. I still think there's value. Given all the injuries we saw at the position last year, I think there's real value in having a third quarterback because maybe you can trade him at some point before the trade deadline, the Tuesday after week 9, or maybe you will need him. And don't you feel a lot better if you've got a guy who knows your offense, who can play, and he's ready to go if QB1 and QB2 get injured? Quarterback's the most important position in football. I guarantee you, if I was running a team, and the fans of the team I would be running should be very glad I'm not, the one thing that I would do is I would insist on having 3 competent quarterbacks ready to go. And yeah, there's a drop-off between 1 and 2 and 2 and 3, but there's a hell of a drop-off between 2 and receiver who played quarterback in high school coming in to finish a game. All right. Here's one more question from Rab Buffalo. This comes from Instagram. How sore will you be after Sims lays his meat hooks on you each week? I was really, when I saw him this past weekend, I was standing up, so I was able to brace myself. So he didn't really get me that good. It's when I don't see it coming. You know, they say like if you get like hit by a car and you're standing there, if you're not braced for it, you just kind of get thrown and you're less likely to be injured. You brace for it. I don't know that that's physiologically accurate. I do know this. When I'm not ready for it and he gets me, it's a lot worse than when I have at least have a chance to kind of, shrink a little bit, make it harder for those big giant ET fingers to dig into my flesh. So I just accept it's a reality of every Sunday. And that means it's football season. When I'm getting manhandled by Chris Sims, football season is here, so it's worth it.
Okay, you have a chance to win $1 million in the NBC sweepstakes on Yahoo Fantasy. Just download the redesigned Yahoo Fantasy app or go to NBCSports.com/fantasymillion for additional details. What are you waiting for?
Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.